Fall is here, and that means one thing. We have all been fishing for fall Chinook, but as we start to taper off, even in some of these upper river systems, where I've recently fished the confluence of the Snake and the Clearwater River, these fish are now traveling up the Snake in the Clearwater River. Yes, you can 100% still go out and target fall Chinook, but in today's episode, we are going to start shifting our focus into Steelhead. And Steelhead are traversing the Columbia River, 1,300 plus a day, still coming over Bonneville. And where I'm getting ready to go fish, above Lower Granite on the Snake River, 2,500 a day are coming over, and this year's predicted to be one of the best steelhead runs the Clearwater River has ever seen. One of the best ever. So we are expecting a large run of steelhead, as well as the Idaho Clearwater River famous steelhead, the B-Run steelhead, which has an average fish size of 12 pounds. Tell me a place in the world where you can go and expect to catch a 12-pound steelhead, expect to catch. Not go out there and hope you catch a 6-pounder, but a 12-pound steelhead. So that's pretty freaking exciting all in itself. And I'm super stoked about it. And I want to go over with you guys today 3 basic setups that will ensure you guys success out there on the water, depending on what type of water you are fishing. Welcome back to another episode of Walking on Water. We are going to talk about 3 different steelhead setups that will catch you steelhead. Stay with us. All right, really quick, we're just going to go over the rod and reel. Now, we're going to start with the reel. This is an Okuma Kmar 3000 series. I know a lot of people use baitcaster reels. More power to you. Use whatever reel you like. I think a 2500 to a 3000 series reel, or a 2000 even, is a good starting place for a reel when it comes to steelhead. I like using a long rod for mending line. This is a cheaper rod, but this is an Okuma SST, and it's a 9.6 rod. And so I like using a nice long rod for mending line, so on and so forth. This is a great bank application rod, as well as a side drifting rod, and can even be used for bobber dogging as well. I just like this because it's a universal type steelhead rod that puts fish in the boat for me. And so these are things that I like to use. If you like to do something different, more power to you. I'm sticking with my spinning reel. You guys can use the bait casters all you want, but they both work. Anyway, so this is the rod and reel breakdown. 40-pound Enforcer braid by Addicted. I do like the diameter and the castability of this braid. I didn't think I was gonna like it that much at first, but after using it, it actually is a really good braid. Fished this last year in 28-degree weather. All my guides were icing up, everything like that, and the braid held true and strong, which I was extremely happy about. Let's get down to the business end of this rod. So I blood knot about 8 to 10 feet of a 20-pound, 15 to 20-pound fluorocarbon onto my main line, so I can run my bobbers, my weights, you know, my sliding weights, all those things smoothly up and down the line itself. So this is my steelhead leaderboard with all my spare leaders on it. I like to use number 4 hooks. You can use anywhere from a number 4 all the way down to a number 1 hook. Now, the first setup that we're going to talk about is probably one of the easiest setups to actually set up, and we're not even going to break this down. I'm just going to show it to you as it is right here on my rod, okay? This is a side drifting setup, and as you can see, it's super simple and very easy to do. So we have our fluorocarbon bumper, our 10-foot bumper that we've already tied up onto the rod itself. We're simply gonna grab a barrel swivel like this one right here. Just a little barrel swivel. Then we're gonna grab a duo lock snap, just like so. How I like to do it, and a lot of people don't do it this way, but I do because it's super simple, super easy. I don't run the 3-way swivels. In my mind, I just really feel like there's absolutely no reason to run a 3-way when you can just set it up like this. I just open up the duo lock snap, okay? I slide the barrel swivel on there just like so. And now we simply just have a duo lock snap sitting right into our barrel swivel. All you're going to do is simply take your barrel swivel, you're going to tie it to your main line, okay? Then you're going to take your leader, just like this leader on the leaderboard, and you are going to tie your leader to the other end of the barrel swivel. See how that duo lock snap is hooked to that pencil lead and it's just hanging down? And when it goes down like this, it runs around but never gets tangled up. Super simple, super easy. You do not need a three-way. You just simply hook your duo lock snap to the bottom eye on your two-way barrel swivel. Super easy, and that pencil weight will just hang there and dangle there. Then, down to the actual business end, I personally like to try running corkies on my line, just like so. And this is where the toothpick comes into play. Just like with the hard beads, just like this hard bead right here. You simply just put your corky on before you tie your leader to your swivel. Grab your toothpick, shove it up into the hole like that, break it off, grab your trimmers, trim it, and then set where you want it. I can go up really far. I can bring it down closer to the hook, just like so. Or I can go even up a little bit farther. Grab your scent, throw a little scent on there. And this works the same with the corky as if you were using a soft bead like this one right here, or if you were using a hard bead like this one right here. This is a side drifting setup, and this is probably one of the most simplistic setups that you will run for steelhead. This is great for side drifting out of a boat or picking up from the bank and fishing a nice shallower-esque channel, or even a little bit deeper channel. Maybe not a ton of current, but enough current to where this weight is going to bounce along the bottom, and you're going to have this nice long rod like this Okuma SST to pick it up off the bottom and follow it down. Once you feel that pressure of that fish that's bit onto here, you set the hook, and it brings that hook right into the corner of the fish's mouth, just like that. So they're actually biting the corky, okay? You feel the pressure, you hook set right into the corner of the mouth, and actually, this does reduce the mortality rate of these fish, because when a fish does come up and bite this, versus it being all the way down here, this hook, once it's up here, is getting set into the corner of the mouth every time, versus if it's down here and you have eggs on there or something like that, and you comes up and it swallows it, then you have that hook down that fish's throat and the mortality rate goes up even higher. This is why I love fishing beads as well as fishing corkies or hard beads. So this is the first setup that we were going to talk about today, and I didn't break it down completely because it's not very complex. This is side drifting. Let's get into setup number 2. The bobber doggin setup. This is a bobber doggin bobber. It is so because they like to lay a little bit flat on the water like so. Let's get into setting this thing up. The first thing that you're going to need is a bobber stop, just like this one right here. You can use the rubber, I don't care. You can use whatever type of bobber stop you like to use. Throw it onto your line like so. Grab each side of the string, give it a little tug, tighten it down, and move it up your line. Now, if you've ever used one of these bobber stops before, you will know that these things do like to give a little bit. They are tight enough to hold the bobber, but you do need to tighten them up every once in a while. So it is kind of good, although I do like to cut them. I don't like to cut them super short. I like to leave just enough of the bobber stop tag ends so I can actually pull on them to retighten them down. I've made that mistake a bunch of times. All right, then the next thing you're gonna throw on there is a bead. I like these 5 mil beads, like these ones right here, simply because the hole diameter is not going to allow that to slide up and over my actual bobber stop. So we're gonna put a bead on next, just like so. Slide it on down to your bobber stop. As you can see, it stops at the bobber stop. A 5 mil fire red bead works for me. And so that's what I'm going to continue to use. Then we are going to grab our bobber dogging bobber. We are going to put the orange head on the line first, and we are going to slide it down our line, just like so. Okay, so we have our bead, we have our bobber stop, and we have our bobber doggin bobber. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, this is a complete setup. Wrong. It's actually not a complete setup. Why? Because I like to run an indicator corky above my actual bobber itself. I put the bead on there, then I like to put my indicator corky up the line, just like so. So we have a bobber stop, a bead, and then a corky. And we'll get into why we run a corky here in just a second. The reason we run a corky, as I'm putting this bobber on, is the indicator corky will literally let you know if you are fishing, if there's a tangle, so on and so forth. Depending on the placement of this corky, if this corky isn't fishing like this, then you know there's an issue, right? Because that corky is going to want to live right down on top of that bobber doggin bobber's head. If you have a bunch of space in it, or you see the corky back here behind the bobber, you know there's an issue. If there's a good amount of space, you also know that there could be a little bit of an issue. If your bobber is sitting like this, there's definitely an issue because you want your bobber doggin bobber to be laying flat on the water as you are bobber dogging that doggy down the water. Okay, now we are going to grab a piece of pencil lead, just like so. We are going to thread that onto our line. Then we are going to take another 5mm bead, just like so. And we are going to put that on the line as well. Now, we have our setup that's looking just like this, okay? Everything is free sliding along this fluorocarbon. Now that we have our bobber stop, our bead, our indicator corky, our bobber doggin bobber, and then our pencil lead, as well as another bead, now we're just gonna grab another barrel swivel, and we are just going to tie it onto our line. We are going to take one of our leaders now and set it up to put on this bobber doggin setup. We have our size 4, about a 3.5 foot leader, and we are going to, and we also have the egg loop knot on it. So we're just gonna simply take a little hard bead, just like so. We're gonna put it down the line. We're gonna find the setback that we like, and we're gonna take our toothpick, and we're just gonna slide the toothpick in the hole, just like so. Then we're just gonna simply break it off. Now you have a set hard bead on a number 4 hook on our leader. Then we are simply just going to grab the barrel swivel at the end of the business end down here, and we are just going to tie this on. And now we have our whole entire bobber doggin setup. Super simple, super clean, super easy. It goes all the way up from the bobber stop down to the bead, the indicator corky, into the bobber doggin bobber, down to our weight, down to another bead, and then down to the money itself, the actual setup. We got our hard bead locked in with a toothpick and a number 4 barbless hook. Let's get right into the number 3 setup that will put you guys on steelhead, whether it's this fall, winter, or spring. Just so fun to make good casts and get out there and catch fish like this. So again, we are going to grab a bobber stop and we are going to slide the bobber stop up our line just like so. Then we are going to grab a 5mm fire red bead. It does not have to be red. I like red because I can visually see it, just like so. Then you're going to grab your bobber or float of choice. I don't care what brand you use. I don't care what color you use. That is up to you. I like using these clear with the orange tops, the Bumax. I like these. I fished these when I was a kid, and I continue to like to fish them. Super light, super effective, and I can see the internals on them, which makes it nice, so I know why, or if it is plugged up, why my line's not going through it. You're going to simply just slide the bobber up the line to that bead. Okay? just like so. And I don't generally run an indicator unless I'm bobber dogging. I like running the bead purely because the bead stops it from going over the bobber stop. But I don't like usually running an indicator because this bobber is meant to float straight up and down in the water. It's not meant to float sideways, so you don't really need an indicator out here telling you if you're snagged up or if you're messed up in any type of way. I like running it just like this. I can see the top of it. It's running straight up and down, so on and so forth. And that's just the way I like to do it. Okay, then I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab a barrel swivel. And why do I need to barrel swivel if I already have 12 feet, 8 to 12 feet of 20-pound fluorocarbon? Simply because I'm not going to run 20-pound fluoro when I'm fishing for steelhead. I like to run anywhere from a 10 up to a 15, maximum 20 if that's the only line you have. Not because the fish are extremely line shy, it's because you want to reduce every single variable that you possibly can. You're using lighter tackle fighting big fish because, yes, they could be line shy, or it just could simply be because you want to reduce the drag of the water as you're traveling with your gear down the water, and that's why I like using a little bit of a lighter leader. As well as you don't need to go overkill when it comes to these steelhead. You generally don't have your drag so tight that these fish are going to rip the rod or break the line. And so you do want to play these fish out. They are a hyperactive, jumping, acrobatic type fish. And so in my opinion, you don't need a super beefy leader. That's why I'm going to transition from the big fluorocarbon down to a lighter leader. So we're just going to simply tie our barrel swivel on just like we did before. 8 wraps. Wet your knot, and then suck it down nice and tight. And then we're going to grab our shears, and we are going to clip it off. Then we are going to grab our lighter leader. Okay. We have a nice strand of light leader right here. This is a 12-pound leader. And we are simply going to tie it to the bottom of the barrel swivel and clip it off just like that. Then we're going to go into our handy dandy jig box, and I'm going to pull out a couple jigs. Let's grab this beautiful addicted jig right here. And it doesn't really matter to me what jig I'm putting on right now. This is for video purposes, but I do like all the addicted jigs. They do look very fishy, and they have fished. So that's all that I need to see or hear, is that they have actually fished. And so go ahead and tie your jig on with another fisherman's knot, just like so. Okay, and now that we have our jig tied on, okay, we have our jig tied up. I go really simple with my weights. You can buy the individual inline weights that work amazing for steelhead fishing. It keeps things nice and efficient. But I just simply grab 4 of these little tiny snapshots, and I go ahead and I put it right above my barrel swivel. So my weight's right above it, and then I have my jig right down here, 3 to 4 feet of leader below it. If that's what you like to run, you can go a little bit less than 3 feet for sure, and you don't have to run 4 by any means. But I like to place about 3 or 4 snapshot weights right above that barrel. And why I do it above the barrel is simply because the barrel's already there. I don't need a bead, and if that weight does want to slide up and down the line, it's going to get stuck and hung up on that barrel, so these weights have actually nowhere to go. The jig is floating down in the water, and that is realistically our whole entire setup when it comes to bobber fishing or float fishing. Super simple, super easy setup where you have a 5mm bead, you have your Bumac bobber, as well as you have your snapshot weights down to your jig or your worms. All 3 of these are hyper effective ways, and these are all baseline setups. These are the bare bones of the setup. You can add, take away whatever you realistically need after you've set these setups up this way that could help you be a little bit more effective on the water when it comes to steelhead fishing this coming winter and spring. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Walking on Water. I hope you guys all go out and bonk a bunch of steelhead. And thoughts and prayers go out to the friends and family of the young guide that is missing down there on the Columbia River from yesterday's big squall. So prayers go out to them, pray for them, and pray for the fishing community. Tight lines. I will see you guys in the next one.